Tom Clark's 6M podcast is a Boink Studios production. And now, on with the show.
Hey, what is up? Welcome to Tom Clark's 6M podcast. I'm your host, Tom Clark, and in this episode, I'm joined by co-host Phil Lindsey. We were just talking off mic about how the country's in a dumpster fire right now. Is a dumpster fire. The world is too, right? The country especially, massive dumpster fire. I don't really care what anybody thinks. You can disagree if you want to. You're wrong. It is March of 2025. I know what I'm talking about. I know what I see. I know what we're living through right now. And, to think what you want, vote for who you want, but leave me out of that because, if you think we're doing great right now, I really don't have much to say to you. But I'll tell you this, what we need more of is positivity. First of all, we need certain people to get off their behinds and do something. And where we don't have power, they do. They need to make things happen, right? And I don't mean violence. Everybody calm down. But we also need to try to stay positive. It's not the easiest thing in the world to do. Trust me. You hear my tone, don't you? I'm not the most positive guy these days. I don't know who is. When it comes to positivity, man, Sly and the Family Stone. I know that's a weird segue for some of you, perhaps. When I think of Sly and the Family Stone, I think, good, happy. This is great music. Not all of it was meant to be happy toe tapping stuff, and we'll get into that here today. But I'm here to tell you, man, my memories of this band, of this group, of who they are, what they represented, all good. All good. I grew up with a lot of this music. I freaking love it. I still do to this day. There's only ever going to be one Sly Stone. I promise you that. All right? There's been a lot of folks come after this band that pay respect, pay homage, and kudos to them for doing so. But man, I'm going to tell you something. There's only ever going to be one guy. That's it. And I can't wait to talk about it. So let's don't wait anymore. All right? Let's get into this. Today we're talking about Sly Lives. It's a documentary, not just the band. Let's make that clear before we start. Here we go. Sly Lives, also known as The Burden of Black Genius, is a 2025 American documentary film directed by Questlove. Yes, that Questlove explores the life, career, and legacy of course, Sly and the Family Stone. They were, in case you didn't know, an American funk band formed in San Francisco in 1966 and active until 1983. They are considered to be pivotal in the development of funk, soul, R&B, rock, and psychedelic music. Their core lineup was led by singer-songwriter, record producer, and multi-instrumentalist Sly Stone and included a big-time band of big-time professionals who could flat-out play. I'm telling you, some of the best music of all time produced by this band. This documentary had its world premiere at the Sundance Film Festival on January 23rd, 2025, and was released on February 13th, 2025 on Hulu and Disney+. Total running time of 112 minutes. And there's a lot to get into, but that essentially is your lowdown on Sly Lives. Phil had been trying to do this for weeks, and I kept canceling. I kept having stuff go on. But I finally watched this last night, and the end shocked me because I honestly, genuinely believed he had passed. And I didn't necessarily think that he passed in a bad way, right? Nothing nefarious. I just kind of assumed maybe he just got old and natural causes. But dude, Sly's still with us, man. What did you think about this doc overall? How did you think it went? What's your take on it as we start?
Oh, it was really good. I thought that just covering it in the way that they did, and not just covering Sly as a creative, but covering the idea of Black exceptionalism and the burden that comes with it is such a interesting topic. And to use Sly as a way to build around that conversation, I thought was a very smart concept. And like you, I think, the name of this is Sly Lives. And so I didn't think anything of that. I just assumed that maybe he was no longer with us because we haven't seen him in the public eye in a long time. And everything we had heard at one point was extremely negative. And, we've seen this before. We've seen behind the music and a lot of these type of documentaries before where when it's going in one direction, it kind of feels like, oh, we're going to get to the tragic ending of this. And especially there's a part when they talk about the Hall of Fame, sorry, the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame induction.
Yes.
And he says at the end, see you soon. And drummer's like, yeah, he leaves us with that comment, see you soon. And it could have ended that way. And then that immediately thought, I was like, oh man, he's gone.
Hmm.
And so then when they go through the documentary and his kids are talking about him and his life now, and it gets to the point where he's like, and he's still here. If nothing else, Sly lives. And I kid you not, tears start streaming down my eyes because I
Oh
thought he was
wow.
gone. I thought
Yeah.
he was gone. And we've seen so many Black creatives have stories like this where they give so much to the world. And like they said in the documentary, it's kind of like once you've used them up and they're gone, it's just like they're forgotten. It's like, you've given so much and then whatever, just get out of here. And so I thought, this was going to be another one of those where, he had such a great career, but then, his legal troubles and his addiction was going to be one of those things that defined him later in life. And so to be able to tell his story and say, and he's still here at the end, a lot of not just Black artists, but artists in general don't get that. They don't get their flowers when they're still here. So I was not just tears of him being still here, but tears of joy that he got that while he's still here. He got, someone that cared enough about his legacy to tell his story and give him his flowers while he's still here.
Yeah. So did you have a wait a minute, what moment? Because buddy, I sure did. It was crazy.
Yeah. It was both. Like I said, when we got we got the Sly Lives stuff, I was like, man, I'm so glad he's still here.
Yeah, same. Same. I mean, I'm glad he's in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, but I'm waiting for, and look, for all I know, he's got one, like a Lifetime Achievement Award. Uh, what are they calling the Grammy? Is that the Grammy Lifetime Achievement Grammy? Whatever it is, the guy has earned it. Like,
Yeah. What?
uh,
Well, didn't they do like something to honor him? Because I remember he did the performance for the Grammys.
so I've got a pic here of
It
him
was
with the
like,
Family Stone in 2007.
yeah, he did something for the Grammys. It was not that long ago. I want to say within the
Oh,
last 10 or 15 years.
yeah, that might be it then. Yeah, man, like you said, a lot of guys don't get this ending. Like, man, Prince is gone. Like sometimes that just hits me. Like, I liked one Prince video on Facebook, by the way, and now I've been the onslaught of Prince content hitting me on Facebook, which I'm here for it. But like, I still can't get over the fact that Prince is gone. So like, we've lost everybody, it seems like, but
Yeah,
Sly's still around. And by the way, Sly just had his 82nd birthday on March 15th. How you like that?
love that. I
Yeah.
mean, yeah, to your point, Michael Jackson gone. I just
Yep.
watched the Luther Vandross doc that was on Max, also gone.
Yeah.
There's so many people gone. Quincy Jones gone. Roberta Flack gone. There's so many
Yeah.
people just recently. Roy Ayers, legendary Roy Ayers, man, no longer with us. I mean, to the point of like with Quincy and Roy Ayers, those are two guys that lived long lives.
Mm.
Um, but there are so many artists that that didn't get a chance to see their impact on the world. That didn't get their flowers. I mean, Jimi Hendrix is a big one, man. Didn't even get out of his 20s.
Yeah, it's true. Yeah. I mean, they mentioned him in the doc and everything. Like, I didn't realize about Sly's background as a DJ and how he was. This guy came out of the womb with an ear for music, and that's something, man, because not everybody has that. But he knew very, very early. You know, they talked to Grace Slick, right, from Jefferson Airplane or Starship or whatever they're calling themselves at the time. And without him, they don't have their first big hit. I did not know that, dude.
I didn't know some of the stuff that he's produced.
Yeah.
I mean, I didn't know some of the stuff, like you said, with him being a DJ, but I did know like Bay Area representatives. And so then when they talked about that, like him being the DJ in the Bay. I was like, yeah, he's beloved in certain parts of California.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, I didn't know that at all, but he had the personality for it. He absolutely had the guy had a sense of humor, but he was smart, very, very talented. And looking through that music, man, did you grow up with Sly stuff? Was it around? Did you have family listening to it? How did you first sort of encounter his music?
I didn't grow up as a fan of Sly Stone, but at if you grew up in a certain era, it was impossible to not grow up around his music. Whether you
Yeah.
knew it was him or not, you've heard his music. Um, there's a comment at some point in a documentary that could not be any more true. There's black music before Sly Stone, and there's black music after Sly Stone. Could not be any more accurate.
I get it. Yeah. Yeah. Man, again, it's not a sad story. That his fall is unfortunate and the way things happened, of course, because like how many more years on top did they have? Probably several, but like the catalog they left behind is freaking insane to me. Like the amount of music, the stuff, dude, that stuff they accomplished in the first 3 albums is mind boggling to me.
Yeah, I mean, I think there are parts of his story that are sad, but it could be a me getting older thing, and also watching a lot of people around me get older and
Mm.
checking out of here, man. Once it's your time to check out, it's your time. Um, and a lot of people don't get a chance to leave the lasting imprint on the world that I think Sly Stone is going to have. Not just for the music he made, the amount of artists that he influenced that came after it, his impact on hip hop music, his impact on just black music in general. It's immeasurable.
It is for sure. Like all the people he influenced. We were talking about Prince. They pointed out in the doc, and very rightfully so, that you don't get Prince and Revolution without Sly and the Family Stone. I mean,
Yeah,
it's pretty obvious.
yeah. I
Pretty
mean,
obvious.
and the same thing, like you could say, like James Brown and how much James Brown impacted black music. It's the same thing you could say here with Prince. Like there is no Prince without James Brown. There's no Michael Jackson and Usher and all these other artists that came after him that took pride in, being black and making music and trying to change sound, not just make music and, go out there and do what other people are doing to innovate. That wouldn't happen without him. And I think that Sly's in that same vein.
Yeah, I agree. Like it's not enough to just be making some money as a band or as a singer. They changed the game. Like I love that Q-Tip mentioned David Bowie in here because it made a lot of sense. Like Bowie was allowed the creative freedom to change. He was allowed the freedom and the given the wiggle room to express himself and to become other characters and to push the boundaries of what it meant to be an entertainer. Is he straight? Is he gay? That kind of thing. And like, the moment that Sly does something, he's questioned. Like he's under the microscope. And I'm like,
Yeah.
I don't know that I could have made that comparison. Like, but dude, it makes a lot of sense, honestly.
It's such a great point because uh, a lot of times white artists are allowed to wear any hat that they want. They can go and make very traditional music, and then they can come and dabble into R&B and all of these other music sounds and things that black people popularized and be accepted by everyone. A lot of times black artists are put in a box. You're not allowed to bend genres and do all these other things. No, keep making this thing that I like that you did. I don't want to see you do something else. Just keep making this music that I personally enjoyed. And
Mm.
when you look at David Bowie's discography, and he was allowed to dabble into all of these different lanes and do concept albums and be bizarre and esoteric as he wanted. A lot of time black artists aren't allowed to do that. That has changed a lot recently, I mean, you can name a bunch of examples where that is true, where they were allowed to do that. But at that time, nah. Sly was very popular for making this very optimistic music. I don't want to see you do nothing else. Like, I want to feel good. Oh, you don't feel good at the moment? Well, too bad. Make the music that I want you to make.
Yeah, yeah. What was the Jay-Z line? You like my old hits, play my old albums. I can't remember. You know the line. I can't remember how it goes.
Oh, you want to hear my old stuff? Buy my old album.
That's it. Yeah. Yeah, it's very true. Like it's I want to be creative. I want to move forward. And dude, look, in this instance, and look, I agree with you to a point about them not focusing too heavily on Sly. I would like to have known because I'm not, look, so he started doing drugs and that's what did it. Okay, fine. If that's what did it, fine. It doesn't necessarily have to be a deeper psychological issue, right? But dude, a lot of people who destroy themselves, or at least trying to destroy themselves, it's connected to something else.
Mm-hmm.
And I was kind of waiting for, look, to be honest, it's probably none of our business anyway, but I was kind of waiting for, this is why I was doing this. I mean, did you take from this, it was the pressure of the business, it was the pressure to deliver. I mean, I was really kind of surprised, Phil, that we didn't get any sort of deeper, like, when I was a kid, something happened, or I had a past relationship that went sour, and, this was the only way I wanted to disconnect. I mean, I was kind of looking for that. Maybe it's okay that we didn't get that. What was your thoughts on that part of it?
I thought we did get the answer to that. I thought, especially when his kids talked about it later, and one of his kids was like, I think my dad is really shy and he used drugs to be extroverted with people and to be
Eh,
out there in front of a crowd, and he wasn't always so sure of himself. And I mean, uh, I can't remember who it was that performed with him, and they were talking about he would get so anxious about going out there, and she was like, "Well, why? You're Sly Stone. You're a genius. Why do you like you can do this? Why are you what are you worried about?" And I do think there's something to that. I do think that there is something to a guy that at one point was a producer and was a DJ. So he was behind the scenes, and then he became not just the lead of this band, but the face of this band. And everybody was looking at him. I mean, just look at the trend of every time he did an interview and
yeah,
someone asked him
God.
if he was in the band, he would never say it was my band. He would always say, "Oh, well, it was really their idea to start the band." He never would take credit for it. And I don't think that was just him being humble. I think that that was just naturally who he is. He's just like, "Hey, I'm good at this," but it kind of felt like he was a guy that never really wanted to be upfront, and because he was so incredibly talented, his talent pushed him to the front. And the more his talent pushed him to the front, the more he got uncomfortable with it. The more he became famous, the more he got uncomfortable with his position. Because I don't think he ever wanted the fame part. I think he just wanted to make good music. And the better his music got, the more famous he got, and the more like the burdens and the pressure of fame came with it.
Yeah, that makes sense. I guess I was just looking for and you know what? That's fine. Again, there doesn't have to be a childhood tragedy. It's fine. God, man, I hate that. You think it's because maybe he couldn't get out of his own head at the time? I mean, hard to know now, but like the support system around him, like, Phil, at some point when drugs are in, it's over. Like the best support system in the world is not going to be able to reach you because your brain is hardwired to want the drug. That's it. Like, God, man, I'm going to say it's a shame, but he's still here. It's not like we've lost him. It's such an odd, not an odd thing. I'm struggling trying to put words to it, man. Like, I just think about how many more amazing years they could have had things not happened the way they happened, dude.
Yeah, I think another theme that they talk about a lot in the documentary, and this goes with Black exceptionalism. If you're very smart or if you're very talented, let's just take the race part out of it.
Yeah.
If you're very smart and you're very talented, it's kind of a lonely experience, man.
Yeah, that's true.
And I mean, this is a funny analogy, but there's an episode of Simpsons where Homer finds out that he's got a crayon jammed in his brain, and that's why he's been stupid his entire life. And so when he gets the crayon removed from his head, he becomes miserable because he loses all his friends because he's smarter than all of them, and because of that, he starts to become lonely. And he ends up by the end of the episode getting the crayon crammed back in his brain to be stupid again because he just wanted to live this like blissful existence and just be like everybody else and have friends. And I think that that's part of this as well. Uh, when you're exceptional at anything and you're black and exceptional at anything, you've got your way out. And a lot of times that comes with survivor's remorse and guilt of I got out, but all the people I grew up with, the people that I want to love me and I want to approve of what I'm doing, I gotta leave them behind. And unfortunately, a lot of people feel like I have to then try and bring those people up with me. And those people and trying to get the approval of those people back there sometimes is our downfall. And we've seen that to happen to so many black artists, athletes, actors, you name it, because they try to keep all of those same people around them because I want to prove no, 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 I'm still the same person. I'm still where I came from. I'm still black. I'm not trying to assimilate and be around a bunch of white people uh, to fit in. I'm still the same person. I'm still from around the way. And you just can't do both. You can't bring those people with you, man. Sometimes you got to leave those people behind. And it's hard.
It's what ended Hammer, right? It's what ended MC Hammer.
Exactly. I mean, Michael Vick, you bring all of these people with you and
Yeah,
you feel
yeah.
like you got to do all of these things that they're doing. And what are you doing? You had no business trying to still do the same things you would have been doing back then. You can't do that. You're not in the same situation no more.
I think it's, you tell me if I'm off base here, but it has historically the way it's been presented in, books and TV. And as it's played out in real life, we've seen it in real life. It seems like a very, like historically an African American thing where it's like, if you do well, you could be hated. Like,
Yes.
how dare you? And dude, we've seen it with other minorities. I'm sure, like Italian and Irish and other things. And honestly, poor white people.
Yes.
Of all things, like I've heard it around here, like someone makes good and everyone's kind of snickering. I'm like, why are you pissed? They did well. Like, what's the problem?
It's a part of the American tradition of building yourself to be something, and then the world tries to then turn around and convince you that you're nothing
Yeah.
and that you don't deserve it. Because one of the tricks of the American dream is, hey, we're all one good decision away from being in a good place. And so some people look at it like, oh, well, who are they? They made it out, but I could have made it out too. And I want to sit around. There's a there's a performance where he's doing stand. I can't remember what show he's on, and he's during a breakdown. He's like, yeah, people want to come out. They want to sit down. They want to look at you. They want to say, ah, that wasn't nothing, man. That wasn't nothing, man. He got up there and did something, but it was all right. It was nah, man. Stand up, man. Stand up, because this ain't just about me. It's not just about this song. Is about you. It's about all of us. If you believe in something, stand up.
Yeah. Just, I at the same time had that Weird Al's fat video pop into my head and the actual bad video.
Yeah.
You ain't down with us no more, right?
He did nothing. Oh yeah,
Yeah.
I think that happens a lot with black people. Of who are you? Who do you even think you are? And that was talked about in the documentary too. Of like, uh, hey, making this highfalutin music of trying to get us all to be happy and optimistic at one point, and then you want to come back and with the second album, and you want to also remind us I'm black and I've gone through things that all black people go through, and it is hard, man. It's hard. It's hard to be everything for everyone, and there's a huge amount of uh, pressure that comes with being the first black person to do anything, let alone be black and exceptional at anything, because there's so much scrutiny that comes from everywhere. And unfortunately, some of it comes a lot from our own people of ah, he ain't that great.
Mm.
Because that's always the trend with fame. People rise to this peak of fame, and then I want to knock you down a peg. I want to see you fall so that I can say, see, he wasn't that great.
I can't wait. People can't wait for you to fail. They just love it. They just freaking love it, man.
Yeah.
Shocking sometimes. Doesn't matter who's president. It's always been that way. People just want to see you fail. By the way, did you know that their 1971 album, There's a Riot Going On, was an answer to Marvin Gaye's What's Going On?
I didn't, but when it was framed that way, I was like, it makes sense.
Yeah, it does. I had no idea. No clue. Oh, my. Yeah. I mean, we talked about Michael here before, Michael Jordan, and like the idea of, you're in a position of fame and you're essentially speaking for us, I guess. And, they would try to pin Michael down on politics and he didn't want to talk about it. And then I'm sure there's been black artists and musicians who like, that's not my thing. That's not who I am. It's not what I'm going to do. Will Smith, right? Like guys who are like, that's not, but like, do you feel like Sly Stone took up that mantle because he kind of felt like he had to? I mean, because man, he told that story about how the Black Panthers were getting a little intense with him. And I'm like, man, I can't imagine being in that position, man. What do you think led to this?
Yeah, I mean, that's why, again, it's just so much pressure with being black and, standing out of the pack, because now you're in a position where people listen to you, people care about what you think. And so you can't just go in and speak for yourself. You got to be, the sounding board for all black people so that they go, hey, man, you're in a spot where you can change things. And so you should try to change things for all of us. But it's impossible. You can't change things for everyone. You cannot be something for everyone. You can do the best that you can to stand up for things that you believe in, but you cannot be just like this beacon of hope for all black people. It's just too much of a responsibility for just one person, man. Because I don't care how many people you get in a room. You can get 10 people in a room and we're going to have different thoughts on one thing. So you just can't possibly speak for all of us.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. It's not even realistic, Phil. It's not fair either.
Yeah, it's a very unfair position to put a lot of people in. And at that time period, like with the politics and a lot of things going on with race in this country, I understand where he's coming from, how difficult it is to, come out and make music that uplifts and has a great message to it. But then also it's like, well, I want you also to do this and here, come do this and do that too. It's like, hey man, I just, wanted to make some music about things I believed in.
Yeah, again, taking up that mantle, feeling that responsibility. Man, when this doc kicks off and that white interviewer is talking to him when he's sitting on the couch and she's like basically running down how successful he was. And then she goes, and then you blow it. I'm like,
It's mean.
Dude, it's vicious. How do you do that, man? Like, he didn't know what to say. And I'm like, I don't know if I've seen a reporter, maybe I'm just not looking enough places, Phil, but dude, it's cold hearted, really.
Yeah, it's mean. I mean, because he did have a lot of success, and I mean, Q-Tip and a few of the other artists there. It's like when you become famous for something, it almost becomes a prison. It's like you got to keep doing this thing that made you famous, and you can't blow it, or you can't do something different. You gotta keep doing this one thing that we loved you for, or else.
Yeah. Yeah. How dare you do something else? Who do you think you are? That kind of thing.
How dare you be human and make mistakes?
Right. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And let's be honest. Look, and I don't know the answer to this. Maybe the answer is that the record company, that the producer, that the label actually did try to help. I don't know the answer. I'm speaking from a place of ignorance right now. But it makes me wonder as I'm watching this, was there anybody at the label? Like, dude, for Ray Charles, they went out of their way to help him get clean, right? I wonder if that was done for Sly. I really don't have the answer to that, man.
I don't know, but even that, like, they didn't try to get Ray clean because they cared about him as a person.
That's fair. Oh, yeah, you're right.
He's an investment. We make money off of you, and so
Yeah.
no, we want the show to go on. I don't really care about your well being. You're a cash cow for us. You got to keep churning out music.
Yeah. You said it before I get it. Yeah.
Yeah, so I think
Hmm.
that's part of it. I mean, even what you're saying that interview, it's just like, yeah, I want you to come here and tell your story, but I also want to tell your story for you and tell you that you were a letdown. Like, what?
Why not start off the interview by listing his accomplishments and then saying, how are you doing? Right? Are you okay? Are you physically feeling well? We've heard stories about drug use. How are you feeling today? Are you okay? But no, she hits him with, you blew it. Jesus Christ, man.
Yeah, man, that's the thing. Once you're turned into a national joke to people, that's all you are. I mean, man, Robert Downey Jr. went through that period where that was it. All he was known for was that awful period of his life. And if
Yeah.
he didn't get to have his comeback and he didn't get to prove that he could still act and be a successful leading man, that's all he would still be to people as a joke.
It's insane. I just pressure to the end. Like,
Yeah.
it's freaking wild to me. You know who I missed seeing on here was Prince. Like, again, I keep going back to Prince, but like, man, Prince didn't go around giving a ton of interviews. He gave some, but like, you had to believe he'd be down for this. They would have went to him probably first and said, we're going to talk about Sly. What do you have to say? Man, that'd have been great to see.
Yeah. Very glad we got George Clinton on this because he was
Yeah.
incredible throughout this whole thing. Have you seen the outtake, by the way, of him rapping all of the words to Rakim? It's so good.
I have not.
It's so good. He's rapping all the words to Follow the Leader, and I mean he knows the entire song word for word.
Wow.
It's so
Very
great.
cool. I got to look it up now. Yeah. I'm glad we got the musicians we got, man. I did not recognize D'Angelo at all. I mean, my biggest memory of him is him being shirtless in that video and every woman on the planet just melting.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But I don't know what he's done since then, but it was cool to see him. And Shaka Khan's on here. She's like 100 and looks great. Like, it was cool to see the amount of artists that we had on this doc, man.
Yeah, I was happy to see D'Angelo. And I mean, just with his history with Questlove and being a Soulquarian, it makes sense for him to be here. Um, but also when you look at his discography, you can see how he's influenced by Sly.
Hmm.
The album Black Messiah, I believe that's his third studio album where he has the band, uh, uh, D'Angelo and the Vanguard, which I think they're making a second album. Very, very good album, but you could
Wow.
see all of the comparisons to Sly Stone on that album. And so I thought that they made perfect sense. And what D'Angelo makes represents, because it's the same what you're saying. You know him as doing the How Does It Feel video, shirtless, and that's what some people know. Like he became this sex symbol. And I don't think that he ever wanted that. He's talked very publicly about him picking up weight and everything after that because it was too hard to live up to this idea people had of him that wasn't really him.
Hmm.
And so now he's making music now, like him looking totally different now. No, this is yeah, I just want to make the music, man. I want to do this part and this, and I did this great video that people love, but also I also want to do this, and I want to be this, and it's like you can't just be this time capsule for people to just go back to and stay that same person forever.
Yeah, you got to move forward. I mean, I respect that. I respect artists wanting to move forward.
Boink Studios is the home of Tom Clark's main event, Tom Clark's 6M podcast, and Two Nations Under Ted, a Ted Lasso podcast. Visit the site today for links to every podcast platform, social media, special announcements, and a lot more. Check out the site and bookmark today, boinkstudios.com.
Yeah, like I said, there's other guys in here. The great Nile Rodgers, who is
Yes.
that guy, dude, that guy hasn't aged in 20 years. I'm telling you right now, he has found the fountain of youth. He looks great, man.
Yeah, he's also in the Luther Vandross doc.
Oh,
he talked about working with Luther Vandross. I did not know Luther Vandross was tied to the amount of stuff that he was tied to.
Hmm.
Um, but he did all of the backing vocals for the original Chic albums. And when you listen to it, it's like, that is Luther's voice.
Oh, wow. I had no idea.
And so he did a lot of backing vocals that when I really thought about it, I was like, that is him. He had like a whole career before he became Luther Vandross, the icon and one of the greatest vocalists of all time. He had a whole career as a backing vocalist and then another career as just a guy that made jingles, and he
Mm.
could have just did that and made money and he would have been perfectly fine. But yeah, when I was in there and he's talking about like what that meant, and when you think about like all of the stuff that Niles Rodgers as an artist has been around, like the rise of Luther Vandross, like the rise of his stuff with Chic, that like being tied to like Diana Ross and all the stuff he did with her, and like just what a career, what a lifetime to like see all this stuff, like being around like in the middle of the Studio 54 stuff and all the crazy stuff that must have happened during that time period, and he's still here. That's just wild.
Still going. Got a podcast. I might have checked that out.
Yeah. Has like a massive hit within the past 10 years with Daft Punk, like still
Yeah.
making incredible music.
Still going. Yeah, dude. Worked with everybody too. And everybody wants to work with him as well. Yeah. And why not? Like, dude's a freaking legend, man. Worked with all the top acts in the 80s. And let's see, the 90s and 2000s. Like, yeah, crazy, man. Guy's in everything. Let's see, as you mentioned, George Clinton's in this. It was good to see Jimmy Jam and Terry Lewis. It's a good day for me when I know Jimmy Jam and Terry Lewis are still walking around in those fedoras and those suits, because that is such an iconic. They're such an iconic duo. Janet Jackson and the time and all this other stuff they did in that time period. Dude, it's like their comic book costumes. They just look great. And man, I was so glad to see they're both still with us too.
Yeah, I thought their story about sampling for Rhythm Nation, I thought that was great. Like even when he's talked about how he sampled on a tape machine, I was like, boy, you do not have to do that anymore. A lot of these guys now, no. You can just pull up the program, put the songs in there. I mean, with AI and all this other stuff, totally different. You sitting there with a tape machine to cut this and cut the loop, that's not a thing no more.
Yeah, it's God. There's so many stories through the years of tape machine and stuff in the studios, man, and how much they did, how much like splicing tape together to get to get the edits of the songs where they need to be. Yeah, crazy how things have changed, man.
Yeah.
Q-Tip's here as well, as we said. Ruth Copeland's in here. Clive Davis appears in the film. Yeah, they got a who's who of people to do this. Did you know about Questlove being behind this before it premiered?
I did not, but then when I saw the opening credits, it made sense. Yeah, but when you look at like the friend group and a bunch of the people in this, it makes sense. I was very happy to see Andre 3000 as well. Very reclusive man that has been traveling the
Hmm.
world. And I mean, when you when you think about some of the artists that are here, and there's a part in the documentary where they're like, "Yeah, Sly made this great album," and then the label kept going, "Hey, when's this next album?" And they started putting out the greatest hits, and it took them a while to get to the Riot album. Um, if that doesn't speak to anybody, it speaks to Andre 3000. We've been asking for this album. He's just kind of like, nah, I don't want to do that. Here's some flutes. Here's some flute music.
Yeah.
I mean, that was a story with Tribe for a long time. They made this incredible album with Midnight Marauders, and Q-Tip just kept adding and changing things until they came and they're like, no, the album's finished. We're done. Give me the album. It's over. He stopped. And the same thing now. Like he went from doing the Kamal, the abstract stuff, to doing a very mainstream kind of like pop heavy album with his first solo album, and then his second solo album could not be any different. If anybody that I can think of, like with that same thought process of Sly being kind of a chameleon, um, Q-Tip fits that vein perfectly.
Yeah, I agree. And dude, their band, I'm telling you, legends. These guys like Freddie Stone on guitar, Cynthia Robinson on trumpet, Jerry Martini. He is the saxophonist. He was the one earlier in the doc that you mentioned. And see the great Larry Graham, like as a dude that fiddles with the bass. I am forever in awe of Larry Graham because he is a freaking genius on the bass guitar.
What a mustache, man! You see
Right?
this guy? What a mustache!
He's been rocking this look for several years now with the suit and the hat and the mustache for several years now.
Bro, this guy, he was tremendous. I think the band, all of the stuff we got from the band, some of it was, of course, old footage because I believe some of the band is no longer with us.
Let's see. You might be right. Greg Arico is the
Pretty
drummer.
sure-
He's still here.
pretty sure Cynthia is no longer with us.
Cynthia on trumpet. Let's see. Yep. November 23rd, 2015. 71 years old.
But yeah, a lot of what we got from them was great. Drawing a blank on the drum player. He just, I don't know what it is about drum players. They all kind of have this vibe to them. And he has to look when you see him like that's a drummer. Like I feel like there's a lot of bass players that kind of have that same thing to him. Like that guy plays bass.
Greg Arico is the drummer. He was the one wearing the little fedora in the dock.
Yes, he was great. When he's like, the gig started changing. First time we did the Fremont, it was Jimi Hendrix Experience, Sly and the Family Stone, 750.
Yep.
Hey, how are you?
Yeah. Crazy. God, those ticket prices back then, man.
$750, like crazy. Yeah, but I love seeing that stuff with them because those guys, again, it's something about musicians and the kind of musicians that were in this band. They were just, naturally cool. There's something about, especially like jazz musicians, like and you could tell, like this guy and some of these guys, they just have that vibe to them. The way they dress, the way they carry themselves, the way they talk. My man that you mentioned earlier that played trumpet, he has a very low register of his voice. It's like everything just seems so cool. He's just like everything's even killed. Even when he started about the problems in the band, he was like, yeah, so it's time to go. It's time to go. And same thing with with Larry when he's talking about it. They're like building this thing up of him having a beef with Sly and his friend that moved in with him, and all of this stuff about him fearing for his life. There's that crazy story of him jumping out of a hotel room window to get away from him, and then like there was real stories if people don't know about them potentially getting into physical fights. And it gets to Larry and he's just like, look, man, it's a family. And, I'm kind of a place where if I don't like what's going on, I get out of there. And I felt like it was my time to leave. So I left. Cool to the very end. Never raising his voice, never like, I didn't like this guy. I hated this. No, it's all love. What?
And man, when he popped up at that Rock and Roll Hall of Fame and they started singing behind him, like they just couldn't wait. They were trying their best to get him into it. And like he was happy to be there, but it's like feels like he's checked out, man. Like he came he barely said anything, had a smile on his face, of course, but yeah, wow. And look, you're the guy, right? You're the guy. The band is named after you. Without you, we don't have a band. Okay. So when you're going to be late, and they covered this, if you're late or even no show, or if you decide we're not recording, or if you decide you're going to play all the instruments on the album, you only need us to tour with, you're affecting my livelihood. This is how I pay my bills and feed my kids. Like all of his band members on this doc field could have burned him and they didn't.
No.
Like, and honestly, if they did, you kind of would have understood. But at the same time, the overwhelming sense that I got from this, you tell me if you got this, the overwhelming sense I got from this doc was that everybody just loved the guy and really didn't want this to happen. They all kind of felt like, man, I can't believe well, I guess I'm leaving because there's nothing
Yeah.
left. You know what I mean? That part of it was tremendously sad for me.
Very sad. You can tell that they believed in him.
Yes.
Like they very much believed in him, and you know, it's like I said earlier, his talent and everything pushed him to the forefront. He led them. He was a leader to them, and so uh, when he started going astray, and this is the guy that they were looking to lead them, it's just like, well, where are we going? What are we doing? Like, I don't want to leave this thing because I believe in you, and I would follow you to the end of the world. But if this is it, if everything that I believe that we were here for, the music and everything, if all of these other things become more important, I can't follow you down that road, man. And
Mm.
that just like you said, it just was deeply sad to watch the timetable of that, of watching this band to get together and them talking about feeling like a real family and real friends and how much they spent time together and their creative experience and how that was so fulfilling for all of them and how they like legitimately loved this guy and put him on this pedestal. But it's just such a small, that little microcosm is such a great metaphor for what he represented for people in general. Of people put him on this pedestal and they want him to show up and be who I want you to be. You're Sly Stone. Show up as the guy that I expect you to be. And then when he doesn't, it's like, well, dang, like, and I mean, you got that across the
Mm.
board with the fans, with the members of the band, with his children. They're all just like, I just wanted him to show up and be Sly. I want him to show up and be my dad. I want him to show up and be a leader. I want him to show up and be this transformative artist that we herald him as. And man, again, him showing up at the Hall of Fame, and like you said, they're all standing around him clapping, and he looks so out of it. He looks so high, and it's so sad because he's just like, I feel like I have to be here because you guys want me to be here, but
Yeah.
I don't know how to show up in the way that you guys want me to anymore. And I think that became the issue from the first album on. It's like you're chasing the peaks of your career. You're chasing these moments of trying to be this person for people. It's just like, I don't know if I could give everybody what they want. It's hard, man. And it's like I think the more he messed up and made mistakes, the more it became hard to show up for people in the way that they they want you to. Like once you get the reputation of being late, it's like now I have to overcome this reputation, but also just that reputation hovering over me. It's like I just don't know if I want to be here, guys. I just want to kind of be a guy that makes music and like kind of hangs around and gets high with all my friends. All his friend groups as well. I'm like, oh no, Sly, all of these guys, like
Mm.
his friend group of Bobby Womack, Ike Turner.
Oh, God.
I was like, oh yeah, all of these guys are getting high.
Yeah. If everybody to hang out with, you picked Ike Turner. My God.
But
Right?
yeah, Ike Turner, Bobby Womack, and it was somebody else in that friend group that I was like, oh yeah, they're all getting high.
Yeah, for sure. Well, Clinton was doing it with him too.
That was the funny part too. When I asked him, "Hey, so yeah, you guys were just kind of hanging out, touring, making music. What were you guys doing?" And he was like, "Getting high." Like I was like,
Yeah.
"This is the easy answer."
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah. Man, and the money gone. Like they made a point to say the money was gone, and like they didn't say anything about bad investments because you got to imagine he accumulated a little bit of wealth during that run. But you know, I mean, drugs ain't cheap, Phil.
Well, it was the same thing. He moved to Bel Air. He had the
Yep.
big house in Bel Air. And then what did he do? He started moving the people in from his neighborhood, all the hanger-ons that he just wanted to be around them. And hey, I'll take care of you. Get anything you want. It's like, but like I said earlier, you cannot take all these people with you, man. Sometimes everybody can't come along for the ride.
Mm.
And I think, man, it's just so twofold. It's like you gotta live up to this idea people have of you. And man, you just wanna represent this thing for our people. You wanna be loved. I think a lot of black people want to be loved by our people.
Mm.
And it's just like, man, you just can't, man. You can't always bring all of that stuff with you, man. You're inevitably going to uh, disappoint some people. It just happens. And I just think there's just a lot of pressure on him, man. And not to say that justifies some of his mistakes, but I think there was a ton of pressure on him. And I don't think he was necessarily ready for it. I mean, because I've watched this documentary multiple times now. And man, when I caught on to that trend of every time they asked him about a band, yeah, you were in the singing group. What was my parents' singing group?
Right.
You were in another band. Well, such and such started that band. I was just in it. Even when they asked about Sly the Family Stone, well, it was really Greg. It was really Greg's idea.
Yeah.
But at the same time, like I said, they're looking to you to lead.
It's true.
And you're just like, well, I was there. Like, the music was cool, but I kind of feel like it's like that with everything. Man, as happy as I was, and like I said, tearful when it turned out that he was alive. The last note of the documentary is just so rewarding of him sitting there. And it's the same interview you talked about earlier of the lady saying, you blew it. And she said, do you feel like, you got what you deserved out of this? Like, he was like, no. Yeah, we all get what we deserve in life.
Yeah, I picked up on that.
I think he's looking at it like, man, got to have a huge impact on people, got to make some great music, but also at the same time, I don't know. I think people want these things to be unrealistic. We want people to have the happy endings and like these big fall from graces and the big comebacks. And sometimes that's just not the real world. It's not how the real world works.
Yeah, it's true. Makes you wonder, man, which, they basically said he was just kind of hanging on in the 80s and 90s. It was, and I forget who said it, but it became embarrassing. I don't think they were trying to insult the guy or anything, but it was just obvious he was trying to hang on. And then he decided, well, if I'm not going to be, if I can't be me, if I can't do what I can do, then I don't want to be seen anymore. I just want to disappear. But like, makes you wonder why there's never really been an attempt. And, for all we know, Phil, someone's reached out to him through the years and said, hey, let's do something. But maybe he just keeps saying no.
Yeah, because diminishing returns. I think that's what it is. It's the same thing with, you come from the high of you being one of the highlights of Woodstock, and people have been heralding this Woodstock performance as this big life-changing experience. And then you had all this other touring where you were at your peak creatively, and it had to keep getting better. Like, you can only go down from innovating.
Yeah.
Right?
Yes.
Once you do something that nobody else has done, you got to keep changing the game. And when your innovations have turned to everybody else innovating and everybody catching up, it's going to feel like everything is a letdown from then on, because now you're just a part of the pack. You're not ahead of the pack anymore.
Yeah, that's a good call. Yeah. Well, we mentioned Freddie, his brother, is in the band. Freddie Stone. His sister Rose is in the band, of course. Keyboardist / vocalist. Vet Stewart, sister, another sister as well. Yep. So they're both in the band. And then some of this list feels probably in the later years when musicians came and went. Mary McCreary, Elva Moton, Jerry Gibson, Pat Rizzo, Rusty Allen, Andy Newmark, Bill Lorden, Sid Page, Vicky Blackwell, Jim Strasberg, and Dennis Marcelino, I think.
Mm-hmm.
So, and I love that when they talked about, him shuffling musicians in and out, that Jerry gave those musicians props. He's like, man, everybody he worked with was great. Like, the band never suffered on their sound. It was just, he was such a hands-on guy that in the studio, he was doing all the instruments on all the albums toward the end. Like, and at some point they're like, why are we here if we're not playing?
Yeah, that's again, I'm telling you, this idea of Black exceptionalism and how lonely it gets, man. I think that is a part of the rift that happened between Fife and Q-Tip. Because it became, we're making this thing together and there's camaraderie, but it's like, I have this idea of what I want the music to be. and it's only so long where it's gonna be all right. I come in and tell you what I want the music to sound like and be, and then it turns into, oh, I'm just gonna do it myself.
Right.
And
Yeah.
I think that's what happened across the timeline of this band. Of all right, we're making great music. I'm coming in to give you the direction, but then the more and more I'm getting into Sly as an entity, the music, the subject matter of music is becoming more and more about me and the trappings of fame, but also the process of making the music is more me alone making the music. And I don't think that was always intentional.
Yeah, that's fair. I mean, it's such a thing, right? Because like they could have not been successful.
Yeah.
They could have had a measure of success. They could have, blended in with any number of other bands. And, they all could have been maybe living fairly comfortably, maybe not too extravagant, but fairly comfortably, be working musicians and earning a living and paying their bills. And, we could have talked about them on flashback retro shows and you stumble upon Apple Music. Oh, wait a minute. I remember that. I remember hearing this band. I do it all the time. And sometimes it's maybe they were stars, maybe they weren't. That's what could have happened here. But like, dude, his force of personality on stage and their presentation, and plus, the country burning itself down at the time, that sounds familiar. Like seeing white and black artists on stage performing together and smiling and enjoying each other's company and singing, when they weren't singing politically charged stuff, which is fine. They were positive, they were smiling,
Yeah.
I honestly believe that people at their core, anyway, I would like to believe, Phil, that people really want that, which is,
Yes.
I think, why they were so popular and so ahead of their time and got as big as they did as fast as they did.
Yeah, I think that it's the same. He was so charismatic, and people wanted to believe in this guy as this that stood above everybody else. Um, I mean, again, it's a good reason why Andre 3000 is here speaking, because he can understand, as a guy that was in a hip hop group, and people didn't just see him as any other hip hop artist.
Mm.
He was esoteric and he was non-threatening in a way that people wanted to invite him in. It felt like he's not just rapping and saying things that relate to black people, but also, hey, I want to be invited in on what he's doing, because he's so inviting and he's so enchanting. I mean, the amount of times we've seen documentaries, and we just talked about the Beatles and their trip to America, and watching them on Ed Sullivan, watching Sly and Family Stone on Ed Sullivan couldn't have been any different.
Oh, man. I've never seen that clip.
It couldn't have been any different. Like them performing, and then Sly and Rose walking up the aisles and like dancing, and I think that was part of it. It was like he never felt like he was just a guy that was beyond on the stage where you couldn't reach him. He always felt like he spoke to us and he was among us as one of us. He brought you in. He brought you into the show. And that's what people loved about the Woodstock show.
Dude, I love how that audience didn't know what the freak to do. Like they were all happy and smiling, but you could tell they were uncomfortable. Like, I wonder if that had ever happened on the Sullivan Show to that point.
Yeah. Yeah. Where they're showing it, you can see the white people doing what they usually do, clapping on the 1 and the 3.
Yeah. Yes. Yes.
And the one black guy that he walks past and he high fives him, and he's just having a time of his life. But all these other white people are like, "Hey, this is fun."
Yeah. Oh, it's wonderful. Yeah, that's I still had never seen that clip before, man. That was crazy. But I liked it that some of them were uncomfortable. That kind of made my day. Like, yeah. Well, again, like part of me just goes back to this. And again, I'm not trying to be negative, but a part of me just goes back to this idea of how many great solid years did they have? Like in terms of their catalog, Phil, and we've got some great hits here. Like, how do you feel about their catalog as a whole? What's the standout songs for you? Is it the hits that we all know, or is there a gem here and there that maybe isn't as well known that you really like?
Hey, it's mostly for me. It's the hits. but that's what I'm saying. It's like once you got to a certain point, Sly as a person, as a personality, became bigger than a band. And initially, the band was sold as this collective and his family, and it's hard to keep that going when a lot of people are now here for Sly, and that is something that happens across the boards with bands. I mean, in some ways, that's kind of the demise of the Beatles. Um,
Hmm.
all of those guys became more interesting as individuals, and their individual pursuits became like, hey, I want to see what's over there. I mean, Paul took on this narrative about him being a control freak for a long time,
Hmm.
but I also kind of imagine if you're a musician and you're creative and you're thinking on a level that he is, if you're doing this at a high level like he is, I can see you looking around like, hey, I got an idea for what the music wants to sound like, but I'm in the confines of having to work with three other guys.
Yeah, no kidding. Yeah.
And I think that that's kind of what happened here a little bit too, is that yeah, I'm coming in here and I want to make music. I've been coming in at the beginning of this, and this is a collective. We all come together and make the music, but I have an idea of what I want this to be and a storytelling that I want to do, but also I'm in the confines of doing this thing as a band that people love.
That's a good take. I like that. Tom Clark's 6M podcast is sponsored in part by Radius Law Group. Every day, Radius helps individuals, families, small businesses, and nonprofit organizations throughout North Carolina, Florida, and Pennsylvania resolve their legal issues by providing effective legal counsel in the areas of estate planning, as well as elder law and Medicaid. Radius Law holds the radical belief that working with a lawyer can indeed be enjoyable. So give them a call at 1-800-519-5667 for more information and tell them that Tom Clark's 6M podcast sent you. Here's something else. And maybe, Phil, because you mentioned Paul and the Beatles got my head working. We only know what we see in clips, of course, but I wonder how many artists of the day consider him a contemporary. Like, where's the photos of him partying with guys? And, you know, we've seen like photos of the Beatles through the years with other artists and that you maybe wouldn't expect and that kind of thing. I mean, I wonder, is it just because they were together for such a brief period of time, or he didn't hang that way? I mean, I'd just be curious to know what other artists, which we got some great opinions in this doc, right? But that kind of came to me earlier about how I wonder how his contemporaries felt about him at the time.
We got a little bit of it because, again, when you look at the friend group he was around with other guys in that time period, I know that the jokes are the jokes about Ike Turner, but Ike Turner is a pioneer.
He is.
A very controversial guy as well, problematic guy, but he is a pioneer. And the same thing, Bobby Womack was an incredible artist for his time, and he was hanging around those guys, hanging around George Clinton when George Clinton had become also influential. Um, and we got the stuff with like Miles Davis just wanted to be around him, and that influenced the music he was making.
Yeah.
Stevie Wonder and a lot of other people from that era of being around him, and how that changed everything. I mean, at one point in black music, there was the Motown sound, there was a Philadelphia sound, and then there was how Sly changed everything. And once Sly hit, everything changed.
I didn't see that Miles Davis stuff coming either. I didn't realize he was the one that put him on that kick.
Me neither. Yeah, so to answer your question, I do think he had contemporaries. By the way, I was trying to think of the other guy hanging out with them in that friend group. Billy Preston was one of them. The great fifth Beatle, Billy Preston.
Yes, absolutely. Have you watched that new Saturday Night Live movie, by the way?
I am not.
They have not portrayed Billy Preston in the best light.
Oh no.
Dude, it's not terrible, but like he's kind of a jerk. And I'm like, all right, what happened here? This is not the Billy Preston I knew all these years, that smile on his face. You kidding me? Like,
Oh, I hate to hear that.
well, maybe it's not true. Maybe he was a jerk. I don't know. It's hard to say, but
Yeah.
it's a good flick, by the way.
Yeah. But yeah, I think he had contemporaries, but I think it was just like I said, once you become this guy that's this beacon for everybody that forces everybody else to step up their game, you then have to step up your game next to them. And you were in an era with, like I said, great Stevie Wonder, like God, like Prince came about later, and all these other artists that came later, man. Like, there's always somebody else that's now you've made your money, you've done it, you've done the thing that made you popular. There's other person like, how do I get there?
Mm. Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah. Well, I mean, look, for me, we were talking about the songs, man. I love the classics. I like, Everyday People, of course, is a great one. There are times when Everyday People is maybe a little too happy. Is that harsh? You know what I mean, right? Like,
I think it's been used to death, and it's been
Yeah.
covered to death to the point that it can feel hokey at times. But I
Sure.
think at the time it was a thing that people needed to hear.
Mm.
It's like it's just like there's a bunch of uplifting music or very positive music now. If you're not in the mood for it, I don't want to hear it.
Yeah. Yeah. It's true.
Yeah.
I Want to Take You Higher. Of course, I love that.
Yeah.
Of course, I love Dance to the Music. I love the classics. I don't know enough about There's a Riot Going On, if I'm being honest.
Yeah,
Family Affair. Dude, Family Affair is a freaking great song.
It's one of the best Sly Stone songs. I mean, it says so much because they came right out the gate with that second album, and they didn't have to cross over because that's a lot for a lot of black artists. They got to cross over, and I think that was also part of the diminishing returns with Sly and the Family Stone, that they had crossed over in such an organic way. It wasn't an attempt to cross over. They were making music that really could work among black people, but it could also be something that white people want to listen to, or any person from any walk of life at that time. In rock and roll, it was such a big moment for rock music in general. But then when you come back and you make something like A Family Affair, and that's such a very R&B style song, and that's gonna chart among R&B songs. And so when I think of Family Affair, I've heard that so many times. I believe it was George Clinton that was saying that was a club record. You go to certain lounges, you're gonna hear that.
Yeah, that's true.
And so I heard that song more growing up than anything. Of course, If You Want Me to Stay, that's another one, but that had that same funk R&B sound to it. So it was certain like barbecues and certain stuff you go to, you're gonna hear that stuff.
Yeah, that's true. That's a great song, man. Well, they mentioned on the doc also, Phil, that they said that Fresh was really the last album. Like,
yeah, it was the last great Sly
yes. Wow, that cover's fantastic. By the way, I want to know how they got that photo. It's great.
It is great. Yeah, Stan is probably my favorite of the early Sly and the Family Stone songs.
Yeah.
Listen to Jimmy Jam and talk about it. Just how, like, it's kind of like this song that has like it's uplifting, but it never really goes anywhere when you really think about it. It's just it's continuing to go up, and then once it gets to the end of it with like the breakdown, it's like, oh, it's a party.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, the one that goes in several different directions, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's good stuff. Yeah, because after Fresh, there was Small Talk, and it looks like the album cover was him, his wife, and his baby. And then there was 1976's Heard You Miss Me? Well, I'm back. You see that cover? Oh, come on, man. What are we doing?
It had great humor. I mean, even just the way that he wrote the title for "Thank You" is hilarious.
And that's on, what's that on?
I believe that's on the second album, isn't it?
Yeah.
Wait, he writes it like, "Thank you for letting me be myself."
Be myself. Yes. Like, through the years, I didn't know what the origin of that was. So I had assumed a DJ somewhere or someone maybe for Rolling Stone had written it that way and it just stuck. But I didn't realize it was him that did it.
Yeah. Yeah. Of course, that's one of all-time great Sly records. And that has been used in tons of movies, commercials. Very sad that he probably did not make any money off of that. But that has been used to death, sampled, of course, like we said, sampled for Rhythm Nation.
Mm-hmm.
So that's obviously one of his biggest songs. Of course, dancing music used to death in the Martin movie where he goes back in time.
Yeah.
Black Knight. That's what I'm trying to think of. It's
That's
in
it.
there.
Yeah.
It's of course in Shrek, I believe. Uh,
Man. Yeah.
big, huge song. But he's got a few of those. He's got a few of those records that are just big that transcended that era.
I can't find the tune. I'm looking.
Thank you.
It wasn't on the first album, was it? No, it's not on the first album. Let's see. Not on the first. Is it on Dance the Music? I don't see it on Dance the Music.
Don't 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 don't. What a great bass line.
No kidding. Gosh, man, I don't know where it's at. How do I still not know where it's at? Next part of the podcast, kids, is Tom trying to find this song.
When I think of "Want to Take You Higher," it's always so cool to watch Tina and Ike do that live. There's
Mm.
tons of videos of them performing that song, and Tina at one point doing all of these rock standards and doing these covers. She was so great, man. She was so great. What a legend. But yeah, I Want to Take You Higher is one of the songs she used to do a lot. She used to do Whole Lot of Love, which was also great when she did it. She did a lot of covers that I don't think she gets the credit she deserves as a lead singer, which sounds crazy because it's Tina Turner, but I seriously don't. I think for like the rock stuff that she did, she doesn't get enough credit for it.
I agree with that. Well, look, I mean, I think Sly could have done anything, and I think he did. I mean, I think Sly could have done a country western song if he wanted to. The guy was, talk about him like he's dead. The guy was crazy talented. He is crazy talented. Like it's, I think he could have done anything he wanted to do. And, again, in a time where a lot of people saw color and saw it to be a divisive thing, he never did. And people around him couldn't understand that, couldn't understand what's his motive. I'm like, he didn't have a motive. He just doesn't, his brain's
Yeah.
not working that way. You know what I mean? He never had a motive for doing what he did. He just wanted to play.
Yeah, but that's what made that time period of time of like hippies and everybody can get along and Woodstock. That's what made him stand out in that era is that it was never about race. It was never about like he made songs about the black experience, but he also made songs like Everyday People where it's like we all got to live in this world together. We all got to get along. And it never felt like he was on that stage even though I'm like he made black music. He brought everybody into his world with him. It was never like, hey, we're up here above you performing. And man, when you listen to those recordings of the Woodstock performance, like, because he's giving his spiel while he's doing that melody of Music Lover. He's doing a melody of Music Lover
Mm.
and Higher. And in the middle, he's like, yeah, I know it's seen as old fashioned to sing along. Well, we just want you to sing along. If you could say higher with us. And the longer this performance goes on, that crowd is getting louder and louder. By the time he gets to the end of the song and he's saying higher, it feels like you can hear everybody out there screaming it with him. And that's what was special about him. That was what was special about his music at that time.
Yeah, dude, he had a way to bring people together. Like, as hokey as it is, man, music is a universal language.
Yes.
And it's, you know what I mean? Like, it's hokey to say it, but it really is. Like, it can speak to everybody. I mean, it can unify. Like, maybe that's what we need now, Phil. We just need better bands to stop the bleeding. What's going on right now, dude? We need something. Politicians aren't doing it for us, man.
There'll always be a musician or somebody that's going to come out and give a soundtrack to what people are feeling, and all the greats have done it. We talked about Marvin Gaye. Marvin Gaye at the time when he made What's Going On, that gave a voice to what a lot of people were feeling. And I feel like the same thing happened with Sly. He came in and he said what a lot of people needed to hear at that time.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, again, I think we need that message now. I mean, we've always needed that message. And I mean, it's a weird thing to compare it to because it's not the same story. And again, much different situation. But like, there's other bands like Casey and the Sunshine Band, which I'm not a disco guy, but he could have filled that band with all white people, and he chose not to do that. There's been other bands, love them or hate them, through the years. It's like, I don't care about that. If you can play, you can play. Let's make some music. Like, Phil, Hollywood gets blasted because actors think they're better than everybody. All right, okay. But like athletes get paid too much. Well, musicians are all right. But at the end of the day, what does everybody look to? If you're looking to a politician to make you feel good, it probably ain't going to happen. I mean, you look to your forms of entertainment. You look to your favorite team. You look to your favorite band. You look to your favorite actor. I mean, it's comfort food if nothing else. So if they're screwing around, if their ideas are horrible, if they have bad views, then all hope is lost. At least there's some element out there of people who are accepting of each other and not out to hurt people. Do you know what I mean? Not to get all serious on you.
Oh, of course. But that's why I'm totally in agreement. There's going to be a lot of music made in this era that is going to change somebody's life, and it's just going to give a voice to a lot of what they're feeling. There's stuff, because again, we're old now, and
yeah,
I hear stuff sometimes, and I remember exactly where I was the first time I heard this song, and it's just like, wow, this is how much life has changed, how much time has changed.
Yeah, really. Yeah. Well, as we said at the beginning, kids, this doc ends on a high note because I was shocked, pleasantly surprised. Let's put it that way. I mean, as you said earlier, man, there's so many artists that didn't get that happy ending. Jimi Hendrix didn't get a chance to. Jimmy didn't get a chance to grow a gray hair, much less get old. Like a lot of these guys and women, because of various different reasons, just succumbed to the pressure and dealt with it the only way they knew how. By the way, I'm still watching the doc right now. They're setting fire to those cars and flipping cars over because Sly didn't show up. I'm thinking, you paid $750 for that ticket. How upset can you be? Do you know what I mean?
That the Chicago riot?
I think so. Yeah.
My dad seen his documentary too, and he was like, yeah, he was at that show.
Oh, wow. That's awesome.
Yeah. He was at that show. It turned into a riot. It's at Grand Park.
Wow. That is crazy, man. Yeah. People upset. Let's burn a car because the singer didn't show up. I mean, I'm sure, Phil, back in that day, $750 was $100, I guess. But yeah, I don't know. I don't know. Let's burn it down because we're unhappy. It's weird. Well, kids, there's a lot more to say about Sly and the Family Stone. This was not an episode to completely dissect the band from top to bottom and every album they did. Maybe we'll cover a Sly album, just an album at some point. But this was only for the doc. So if you've not checked out the doc, it is very much worth your time. Very worth it. Look, again, it is sad. It is sad to watch him. They get him in real time being high on camera, and it's getting bad. And there's moments when he's talking, you're not sure if he's in the room. Thankfully I don't know that there's any, he got behind the wheel of a car. I don't think there's anything like that lurking around. So thankfully nobody got physically hurt, which is good, including him. But, it's sad. Again, it's sad that it didn't go the way that I'm sure everybody around him would hoped it would. But again, kids, the pressure cannot be overstated here that any artist has to go through when they feel like they're carrying the world on their shoulders. I mean, Phil, we mentioned Prince here too. Like, the guy was a genius himself. He had a lot of pressure, but he just, I don't know I don't know what causes people to not go down that road and what causes others to do it. I guess if we knew that, then we could prevent people from going down that road to begin with. I guess it just depends on who you are and what you turn to help relieve the pressure, I guess.
Yeah. Pressure is, it's hard, man. It's hard to have the pressure of exceeding this really great thing you did one time. And that's why it's so hard to have longevity as an artist. That's why the artists that have responded to that kind of pressure well They deserve great credit, but that doesn't mean we should tear down the people that weren't able to live
Right.
up to it either, though.
Yeah, very true. You know, there's that old catchphrase, America loves a comeback story. Well, they used to. I don't know about now.
I think the truth is, sadly, that America likes a comeback story, but they like to see people fail first, man.
Mm.
I mean, yeah, if we can get the comeback afterwards, that's also great. But a lot of times, people they love nothing more than watching somebody rise and fall.
Yeah, it's a shame. Um, you know, maybe that's really the saddest part of this is that you know, people kind of forgot about him the way they did. And like, look, you know, we said on this show before, Phil, that every rapper on the planet owes James Brown some money. Uh,
Isaac
they owe Sly
Hayes,
Stone too. So
yeah, a lot of these artists owe Isaac Hayes.
yes.
Like I said, Roy Ayers, great Roy Ayers, there was very much sampled a lot too,
Mm.
and yeah, it's unfortunate. It's unfortunate some artists don't live long enough to get their flowers, but it's also unfortunate with how the business goes. Some artists aren't getting the pay, and they're not getting what they deserve. I mean, he shouldn't be worried about money. He shouldn't be worried about anything right now. He with everything he's given to music, he should be taken care of.
Yep. Oh, for sure. Yeah, dude. No doubt about it.
Yeah, at one
Yeah.
point he was living out of a camper, if I remember correctly. He's living out of a mobile home,
Phew, man.
which is like where he was living at one point. It's like God, sad.
Crazy. Yeah.
But at least it seems like he's around loved ones. It seems like he's getting ready. He's getting to write the ending of his story his own way, even if it's not for us as
Mm.
fans, but just for him. And I think for a lot of times when you talk about comebacks, sometimes we don't need the comeback. We don't need this thing for us. I'm just glad that he is seemingly okay and he has people around him that care about him.
That's hard to disagree with. I'm with you on that. Yeah, it's a good call. Like maybe the happy ending has nothing to do with us. It's for him and his family, which is fine.
Yeah. I was just before we started recording, I saw that there was a sound bite from Jabari Parker. He's a basketball player from here. I believe he's the second overall pick in his draft.
Mhm.
And, he ended up not in a league. He's playing overseas. And you know how this goes when a high draft pick doesn't end up successful in the NBA and they end up playing in Europe or wherever, people make them out to be a bust and a failure. And he's like, hey, I don't care what people say. I got to live my dream. I got to go play. I got to get my family out of their situation and I got to play the game I love. This isn't a tragedy. And so, man, it's such a great way to look at it when you think of Sly and what the impact he's left on the world, man. How many people get to say that they've done that? How many people can say that they were part of, historic, transformative moments for people like he was?
Yeah, no kidding. It's a good call. Yeah. Well, just when you think we've talked about, you know, some of the biggest figures in music, right? We stumble upon this doc, and I realized, man, I haven't thought about Sly Stone in years. So I'm glad we did this. I'm glad watched it and glad we talked about it because kids, there's a lot of great footage out there, old footage of the band doing their thing. A lot of albums you can still enjoy, available on all platforms, I'm sure. And yeah, go out of your way to check it out. If you don't know Sly Stone, you know, fix that for sure. Phil, before we wrap this up, let's get your last word on Sly Lives.
Really good documentary. Cannot recommend it enough. Even if you're not a fan of Sly and the Family Stone, I think it's just fascinating watch in a lot of ways because of the subject matter and the concept that they went with. I think as an artist, Questlove came into this with a vision for what he wanted to do, and I think he succeeded.
I hope it gets something. I hope it's recognized because I think it's very well done for sure.
Yeah.
So hopefully it will. Well, I second everything Phil said, kids. It is very much worth your time to go check it out. So hopefully you enjoy it as much as we did. And stay tuned because, as always, there's a lot more to come on various different topics. You know how we roll here. We cover everything. Nothing's out of bounds. So stay tuned for more stuff on the way. But for now, that is Sly Lives. Hey, thanks for listening to the show. Check out our social media on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram at 6M Podcast. We'll see you next time.